I go live on Facebook. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Here they all come. They're coming in.
They're coming in. Dawn, they're all here to see you. I guarantee you they're not here to see Sam and I. It's got to be you.
Oh,
They're
I don't
never
know
here to
about
see
that.
me, so I support
Yes.
that hypothesis.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
All right. Cindy, can you check to make sure we're live on Facebook and let me know?
Will do.
Perfect. They're still coming in.
Coming in crazy.
Dawn, you got a reputation. People love to hear you talk.
Well,
just like you're talking
hopefully-
about.
Oh, there we go. John from Cleveland, Ohio. Let's go, Ohio. Nice. Yeah, they're putting the Q&A here.
Oh yeah. Hello, John.
We got to talk about security.
I'm sure he doesn't want to talk about them Cleveland Browns, so I'm sure he'd much rather talk about security.
Oh, poor guy. Oh, he doesn't. You should be sad for me, the Patriots. We are the worst team in football.
Oh, I saw your post on Facebook about toes over the weekend.
Yep, toes don't matter, just in case anyone was wondering. I honestly, John stopped watching. John, I'm with you. I didn't realize there was a rule change that you have to drag the toe, not you. And if I guess he just planted the toe, so the toes only matter if they are dragged. So just for people.
Or if you're playing the Chiefs, because we won a game by a toe. Remember the guy's toe was out over the line.
I don't even know. But it's easy for us armchair quarterbacks who are out here watching after the fact. And I'm sure in the moment it's tough and it's all the pressure, but that's what they get paid the big bucks for. But anyway, it's all good. We'll move on.
Absolutely.
There's nothing secure about, let's just say, Mandy, there's nothing secure about the calls in football. Nothing secure there.
There you go. There is nothing. But Mandy, we love to watch it.
Yes, we do.
We have got a great one for you guys today. We have got Dawn Brolin, the designated motivator, joining us today, as well as myself and Sam. Dawn, I mean, her list of things that she's accomplished is just absolutely amazing. But one of my favorites was watching her speak on the main stage at Scaling New Heights in 2023. I mean, she absolutely just killed it. She's on the Intuit Tax Council, the ADP Advisory Board, Avalara's QuickBook Advisory Board. Dawn, I think if I remember right from accounting camp, Appy Camp last week, you are writing your third book currently.
Yes, it should be done by Monday. So we're just doing the final edits.
That's amazing. And she was also named in 2023 as the top 100 most influential people in accounting. So Dawn, we are super, super happy to have you here with us to talk about security.
Yes, well, thank you for having me because it is top of mind and it's something that there's a lot of, we got to demystify some stuff, and that's what we're going to kind of focus on here today. And I'll just go through the agenda because that's always fun.
Yeah,
I'll just rip this off. So we're going to talk about the Security 6. So we'll talk about that, walk through that piece, demystifying cybersecurity, the importance around it, immediate response steps. So if something does happen, we're going to give you kind of a toolkit as to the things that you're going to need to do in the event that happens, right? And then communicating with clients. We're going to talk about how you've got to communicate with them, which is probably the worst part, because that's like kind of like bye-bye clients. It's been great, but I'm sorry I didn't pay attention to the security measures that I'm supposed to be taking as a practitioner. So go find somebody more secure, which is what we are going to try to minimize and avoid, right? Insurance and recovery, what has to happen there. And then certainly strengthening your cybersecurity posture, like getting it together. Again, we can't eliminate the risk that something's going to happen. That's not a thing, right? It's just impossible to eliminate it, but we can certainly minimize it. And that's what we're hoping today. We're going to scare you a little bit because we want you to know what's going to happen if you're not taking this seriously. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about I see a few questions that are already coming in, so that's going to be great. Deanna,
yes.
the book release, that date, we'll get it right out on social, don't worry. And it's actually, just so people know, it's a book called The Elevation of Empathy, leadership for the win. So it's about having empathy in leadership and how empathy is leadership itself. You're not born to be a leader. You are rather groomed and you're bred to be one. There's characteristics and learning things, but the empathy is probably the biggest one. And so it's a book all about that. And I'm really excited about it because I think people who are leaders have to take it very seriously because your impact on other people is significant and you can make or break people by being a leader. And you may be appointed a leader, meaning you're, I don't know, the CEO of a company, but are you truly a leader? And the characteristics. So that's what the book is about. And I'm really excited about it. So Deanna will make sure that you we get that out to you. Anyway, okay, take it back, Mandy.
All right. So let's start off with the security 6. So these are the requirements, the 6 things that are required by the FTC safeguard rules. The IRS goes into a little more depth, but basically it's pretty much the same things for the IRS. The first thing you're going to want to have is a next-gen antivirus. The difference between your normal old-fashioned antivirus and the next-gen antivirus is that the next-gen is actively threat hunting your computer 24/7. And if it starts to notice any suspicious behavior that it has learned through the past, through artificial intelligence, through other endpoints that it protects, it's going to automatically quarantine that behavior and start the remediation process. And then if you're with a solution like Visory, it's going to submit a ticket on your behalf to our security team for us to start to look into that to see if any additional work needs to be done on your behalf to remediate that. You're going to want to have a firewall. One of the cheapest and easiest things that you can do is have multi-factor authentication turned on everywhere. And we know it's a pedo. We know, we all hate it. We know nobody likes multi-factor authentication, but it's cheap, it's free, and it is really going to save you.
So Mandy, can I
yeah.
just jump in on MFA?
Yeah.
So this morning I get in my office, and I sit down and I'm getting ready, because I've got to do these stupid clients who are so late on their tax stuff. And so I sit down and I go to log into Smart Vault because that's like one of the first things that I do. I go into, first of all, I log into my hosting environment, obviously Visory. I log in and then I go and launch my connected desktop with Smart Vault. And then I still have to log in online for various reasons, but I still always do that within my environment. And certainly, sure enough, I click Smart Vault and here comes the stinking MFA, and it's just so, I'm like, oh, come on, Smart Vaults. I'm yelling at Smart Vault while I'm in my office. And so I just wanted to say that I'm empathizing with everybody on that, but understanding that it's important.
Yes, very much. Along with the next one, backups. Quick story internally that happened. One of our staff members thought something was no longer, she didn't need access to it anymore, but she didn't realize when she deleted that file from her teams that it deleted it through the entire system. So the entire sales and marketing file gone. All the information that we've been working off of for years was just gone. Thank God we have technology in place for backing up the data. We just reached out to our internal IT, how to restore it. But if we wouldn't have had that backup in place, gone, everything. And it would have just been an absolute disaster. So backups are not only good for in the event of a breach, but also just for in the event of human error, accidental deletion. Drive encryption on your data. Make sure your QuickBooks data is being encrypted at rest, in motion, all of your tax data, all of your data on your computer. And then VPN. VPN is just making sure that you have that secure internet access between your computer and where all your data lives. Sam, anything you want to add on this?
Nope. I think you covered.
Yeah. A couple of these I get a little, it hits close to home.
So Mandy, we did have a question. I think we can address it like right now. So there's somebody, anonymous person said, would you recommend us consulting with local IT company? How would Visory support my company if we're not located in the same area? What are the pros and cons? Now I'll give my experience and then Sam and Mandy can, follow up that. But so what I have done here is, so I use Visory as my hosting solution. I don't ever want anything on a local computer. I don't want any of that stuff. So it's not secure. I don't know what I'm doing. I have to leave it to the pros. So what I did was I got in touch. So I needed a new computer, my old computer. And not only because I needed this computer was like overloaded with garbage mostly. but also because of the requirements that Visory have in place in order for them to properly and effectively protect my computer, there are certain minimum requirements that the computer must have. And I don't know all the details, I don't remember, but they do. And that's the wonderful part. So I said, okay, Visory, what kind of computer should I get? And I said, you have to tell me like specifically, because I'm not going to understand what you mean. And then I took that, and I do have a local computer guy. Now I make sure that he has certifications and other things like that. So I vet that person. He's been my IT guy for many years, but all he really is there for is to make sure that this physical computer that's sitting right over here, that has the minimum, at least the minimum requirements that Visory has put in place for me, not Dawn Brolin going on to Dell and ordering a PC and just guessing at what I need and having my computer guy set it up. And then all of a sudden Visory's like, no, that doesn't even come close to meeting what you wanted, because obviously we're all price conscious. So that's what I did. And so if I have a problem with the local computer, I bring it to Ben and I say, hey, Ben, I don't know, something's wrong with it. Maybe like I can't seem to get these stinking speakers to work over here. I don't know why. Like I'll take the computer to him to handle that type of thing. But when it comes to, all the other things that go on with the computer, the antivirus, the end device protection, that's what I use Visory for. But I'm not going to mail my hard drive. I'm not going to mail my computer to Visory for them to like make sure it's upgraded to the right level. That's what I rely on my local IT people for. So I hope that helps on my end. You guys may have to say it in a more sophisticated way than I did.
Yeah. So our services have evolved a lot over the last few years. With over the last, I'd say 6 months, we finalized a new portfolio of offerings as we merged 4 companies together and greatly expanded our capability throughout the country. And so we do have boots on the ground for issues that need to be solved on site. Most things can be solved remotely. So for those that are getting their managed services through Visory, we do have options for on-site support if it's something that can't be handled remotely. So there's definitely support there.
But definitely with technology these days, most of your support issues can be fixed remotely. We have tools that help us do that.
Yeah, and I've not seen Ben since I bought this new computer a couple years ago. I have not had one need from him. If I do need something, I always look to Visory first and say, hey, I'm having this issue, and they can tell me, you know what, you like. And when I first set the computer up, I was like, you need a bigger hard drive. Go get a bigger hard drive. Like what you've got is not enough, and various other. And I needed him to put the ports because I want 4 monitors. So, Sam, and if you have, if Visory has boots on the ground, that's great. That's even better. Fortunately, I have not needed any boots on the ground. So, that's been a plus. And I think a lot of that is because my end device is being protected and being serviced remotely through Visory. So it's not like my end device is on its own. And I think that that's one of the things that we don't think about. We don't think about even this thing, the phone. We don't think about the end device protection that we need here. And I think that that has alleviated the fact that I have end device protection, has alleviated for me to not have any needed boots on the ground because Visory just takes care of it. So I haven't had any issues.
Outside of needing those 4 monitors, I think you do everything else inside of the hosted environment. So yeah.
Everything. I live inside of the hosted environment, even if I'm going into QBO, even if I'm going to anything. But again, I still do have that protection on my end device. And I think that's critical for people to think about.
Awesome. Well, those that have joined us today, if you've been to any of our webinars over the last few months, you've probably heard us talking about really those 3 areas, 3 pillars, if you will, of both risk and defense for your business. So people, process or policy, and then tools or technology. And people, hands down, remain your absolute weakest link. I love statistics, so here's a few for you. In 2019, 90% of data breaches were results of human error. 2024, a study showed that 91% of breaches and cyber attacks started from a phishing email, which I think arguably we can go right back and say that's human error if we're clicking on that. So trending the wrong direction is what we saw over the 5 years. And then insider threats. There was also a study that was done, and it showed that 90% of leaders are concerned about insider threats, and people either through malice or negligence, putting data at risk. So maybe we're sending it to the wrong person. Maybe we're forgetting to encrypt it. Maybe we're downloading it to our personal device that our boyfriend or girlfriend uses, and now they have access to company or client data. So insider risks don't always have to be from malice. They can be from negligence, and leaders are tuning into that. So these people-related risks, we find mitigation against those through things like training. So cybersecurity awareness training and testing. We see mitigation through doing things like creating a security-first culture and by implementing policies that then help reduce the risk of insider threats, be them malicious or not. It could just be negligence, but if we have policies in place to prevent those sorts of accidents, if you will, then we're putting some guardrails around our people for their own protection, for the company's protection, for our clients' data's protection. And so we can think about things like policies that prevent someone from accessing company SharePoint data on a mobile device that's not company managed. That's an example of a policy. Another example of a policy would be a written policy. So it's Dawn saying to her team, hey guys, don't work on QBO outside of the Visory hosted environment because we know that's the safest place for you to work on that. So policies, again, they can be technology related policies. They can be verbal and sort of contractual policies. And then we've got our technology. And so technology also can be a risk. So an unsecure hosted environment that your cousin's friend stood up for you in the closet of your office in 2002, that was probably maybe not secure technology. There are better options out there today. And then technology can also be used to secure your data, like Mandy was talking about with the real-time threat hunting and things like that. So as we go through today, you'll hear me talk about things sort of in those three areas because they're all interconnected, and really we have to address all three as we go. So there was a question about managed IT a little while ago. So where does managed IT come in? Well, I think it comes in when we think about areas of expertise. Dawn is expert at responding to the IRS. I am not. So if I got a letter from the IRS, I would probably put on my panic hat and call Dawn because, I know Dawn's going to know exactly what to do and is going to be calm and collected. So when we think about that, none of us can be effective in every area of our business forever. Maybe it works when we're just starting out, we're starting to scale, but as time goes on, we really have to focus on things that bring the greatest value to the business. So if you are a leader in your organization, should you be serving as a spam filter for your team that forwards you every email and says, is this safe to click on? Probably not. So just like your clients, at some point you may find that it's time to engage someone else to help manage and protect your business, just like you manage and protect your clients' finances. With cybersecurity, I would say that now more so than ever before, really over the past 3 to 5 years, it's become more and more apparent that people in financial services need help. You need help from a professional. 3 years ago, you were not regulated at the same degree that you are today. So 2 years ago, the FTC said, hey guys, you need to comply with this. And now on your PTINs, right? The PTINs for what, 3 years now, Dawn? It's been, you have to attest that you have your WISP and your WISP is reviewed.
Yeah. And I took that screenshot. I know we've shared that in other webinars, but when I renewed mine for 24, I screenshotted the spot where they said, you're attesting that you've got your WISP and all that. And so I have that cute little screenshot there, but and I mean, really, here's the thing that I find kind of crazy, Sam, really, is at the end of the day, we've always had more information than any bank has ever had about a person. Right? I mean, out of your doctor, your lawyer, your everybody, we are the person who has it all. And so it's shocking that it took them until just a couple of years ago to regulate it and say, hey, you guys got to pay attention to this. And I'm sure part of it is, and I've talked with Eric Green often about this, the increase in the cyber crime with the IRS being a lot more aware and the federal government really being on top of this. So it's still, I'm going to say, kind of new for us, Sam, in this era, like for us to understand how important it is. So, I don't know. I've always been concerned about clients' information, storing credit card information was always a rule. So
Mhm.
there were always rules. I don't know about always, but there were rules established about credit cards, but not about social security numbers, dates of birth, tax, AGI, all the things that, copy of a tax return where you can go ahead and get yourself a credit card or get a loan or whatever. And, you don't find out until the money's gone, but it's just so much more prevalent.
Yeah, spot on. Banks have held so much information about us for years, and the FDIC was like, "Whoa, whoa, you're gonna have to do certain things for us to say that you're good." I think even some other quote unquote financial institutions, as the FTC defined them, were regulated before accountants were. I think about the check cashing places and car dealerships. Like they fell into that category before accountants fell into that category.
Right. Yeah, crazy. And I know we're going to talk about the cause of most breaches, and I think
Yeah.
Deanna makes a great, she's got to put it in the Q&A here. Even the bank asks us for information. Not only does the bank ask us for information, but so doesn't the IRS. Now the IRS has been using email more than they've ever used before in the last year or two, where you get if you're in an audit, you get this IRS agent and they're like, email me. And I'm like, I'm not emailing you. You just told us we can't email you. And now you're asking me to email you. I had a Rhode Island Department of Revenue guy I talked to yesterday, and he's like, yeah, email me over the 4868. I'm like, bro, that's got her name and social security number, and I'm not emailing. Well, I said, can you access something like a portal, like Smart Vault? And he's like, no, it doesn't require. I go, okay, all right. So give me your fax number, because I'm not sending this in any other way. But it's mind blowing that banks, the government themselves, ask us, like Deanna said, for information about our clients' copies of tax returns. I just dealt with that last week with a client at Bank of America, and I'm like, where can I upload it? And she's like, oh, I'll have to do this. I'm like, whatever you got to do, sister, but I am not email, because I want you to talk about password protecting emails or password protecting documents.
Yeah. Well, now I have to tell you a side story now. So a few weeks ago, we were submitting the paperwork for our marriage license. And there's a spot on the website that it says, okay, after you submit this form on our website, you then need to email this email address and include copies of your driver's licenses, social security cards, and something else was in there. And I called and I said, I really no, I can't do that. I can't send you all of this. I can send you a secure link. Can you click on a secure link if I send it to you so that you can then get access? Oh no, the county's security doesn't let us click on secure links. Mike, okay. So let me get this straight. Your county security will not allow you to click on a link, but you want residents of this county to email you PII, like literally all the things that someone would need to steal our identities, so that you can make sure we have our ducks in a row before we come to the office and present those documents to you and sign our little papers to get our little thing to go do our thing. And she's like, well, we don't want you to have to make another trip back to the house. I'll take that risk.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. She was like,
I mean,
well, if you're good with that. I'm like, I am totally good with that. You're 6 miles up the road. If we forgot something, I'll own it. So
Mhm.
yeah, small town
oh,
USA, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So I mentioned it before. People are our weakest link, and I think that story underscores it. Here we have a person in a county asking someone to share sensitive data. So kind of the opposite direction, but still not great. So people definitely continue to be our number one point of entry. It is far faster and cheaper to hack a human than to hack a firewall. Bad actors deploy large-scale phishing attacks because it costs them very little to do it, and they get the greatest chance that someone is going to click the link. But remember, there's other ways that we can social engineer. We've got vishing, right? So voice phishing, that's the old school, pick up the phone, pretend to be someone that you're not, using publicly available information. I think about social media, Dawn, you were able to follow my whole my whole journey the last couple of weeks, you could have been like, oh man, Sam's totally screwed offline. This is the time to call and pretend to be Sam and like get somebody to bypass MFA and passwords and steal an identity or some financial information.
Yep.
So, we have so much information about us and where we are and what we're doing that's available through our social media, through LinkedIn, wherever we happen to be sharing it, that vishing can be very successful. And it was for MGM. I mean, that took down a massive empire, hotels, casinos. It was a huge deal. You guys remember that? It was just
Oh
over a
yeah.
year ago.
Yep.
And then we've got our smishing, right? So we've got those text messages. We're all up to speed on those. We know not to click on the ones that say, "Hey, your Amazon driver can't find your house. Text us the address." And then the QR phishing. So that's one of the more recent ones. We all became desensitized to QR codes and during COVID because restaurants weren't giving out paper menus anymore, right? It was scan this QR code and let us know what you want. Bad actors figured out they could weaponize those. So QR phishing is another one. There's all kinds of ways, but it really comes down to people and people needing to be aware. And email continues to be really the number one way that bad actors are getting in front of our teams.
The other thing too, Sam, I just want to mention it's
Mhm.
similar to that with regards to your team, because Deanna asked a great question. She said, "What about your remote employees for me?
Mhm.
Does their machine get shipped to them and they can just plug and play, or they have a local person too?" They are so now I don't ship it. Nicole actually lives only like I think 6 miles from me, but she still doesn't come in the office. I don't want anyone in here. I am productive with everyone away from me is the way I look at it. But so Nicole has a credit card, from my account. She goes, I'm like, Nicole, order your computer, get it in. You have to go through the environment, get the end device protection. You're good to go. And so we proactively say like, and like Sam was saying earlier about policies. These guys, and I only have two, myself and two other people, and I just threaten them. And I'm like, listen, you need to only live within the environment. I can't have you outside the environment, although the device is end protected, but live within the environment. That's why we pay for it. We pay for it because we know it's important. It's the most important part I'll say it's tech for us. It's the most important part of our tech stack. Because if we're going to live within these tools that we're speaking of, Smart Vault and Lacert and, Lisio and all these places, I don't have time to go through the security policy for every single one of those apps, though we should be asking. But I want to make sure that I'm staying within that environment at all times. And so I stress that on a regular basis. And speaking of the emails, when I had this happen, I think it was like a year ago, where someone had emailed Tracy and said, "Hey, I need you to wire me X, Y, and Z." And she sent that to me or screenshot it or something. She's like, "This is out of your character." I go, "And that's what it was meant to be, out of character, for you to recognize that that was something I never would do. I would never ask that." Now, if I was somebody that would normally do that, I wouldn't be sending her an email to do that. I'd be calling her, "Hey, Tracy, I need you." First of all, I don't need her to ever to wire anything for me. She doesn't have access to my bank account or any of that stuff. Not on purpose, not on accident, doesn't matter. But, she knew that was out of the ordinary. So the training that we give her, she realized that's out of the ordinary. I also train my team on emails specifically to look at if it's not an email, like you look at the email address, which is something we never trained ourselves to do. Is like when someone sends you something, click on the name and look at the email address and make sure, especially if it's a little bit out of character, look for that O, that's a zero, not an O, or whatever the case may be. And there's many examples of that. But I just found that to be really important. But yeah, the computer comes from us. I don't expect my remote employees to have their own machine, and I don't want them to have their own machine. I want to make sure that Visory has like eyes on it. They need eyes on the computer. So if they don't have eyes on the computer, I'm concerned. So
Yeah. And I would just add that, we're seeing a shift back in the direction of having those corporate managed devices. There was a big shift to bring in BYOD, that bring your own device, back into the business. when everybody went home during COVID. And now businesses are like, okay, maybe we've opened up a new threat vector and it's time to shut that back down. Let's go back to corporate managed devices. To that end, as a part of the Visory roadmap, I'll share that we have a technology that our automation team, we have an automation team now. That's exciting. A technology our automation team is deploying that actually creates company specific images. And all that we have to do is put a flash drive into a new PC, the company's image with all of their tools and tech and apps, whatever they're running, get installed, and then the procurement team just ships it right back out. So it's pretty cool stuff. And that can be done remotely as well. So if a PC is procured by the client, Tracy needs a new laptop, she goes and buys it. We're able to remotely push that image to it and get rid of all the bloatware and just put the things that Tracy needs to do her job on there. So some really cool stuff that's happening with that.
Yeah, Mandy did that for me recently on a computer. So she's like, click this link, bro. And I'm like, is this really from you? So I clicked the link, I downloaded the tool, and she's like, all right, that's all you need to do. Our team's going to push out everything. Okay, I'm done. Great. I love that. I love not having to do anything really difficult.
Another
So,
big trend we're seeing, Dawn, sorry, you mentioned the thing from Tracy with all the AI voice things. So being able to take a few seconds of voice and then be able to just completely impersonate someone. We're seeing more and more recommendations in the cybersecurity space to have a code word that's never typed, texted, emailed, that's never put anywhere digitally. It's a face-to-face conversation or it's a phone call saying, hey, Dawn, if I ever ask you to do anything that's kind of weird, you have to call me and ask me for the code word. And
yeah,
AI
got
is
it.
never going to know the code word because we're never going to put it anywhere in the digital space.
Right.
Right.
I love
So
that.
we're seeing that especially within wealth management or within construction. We're dealing with large wire transfers or big financial moves. We're starting to see that a lot more. So sharing that because that could come in handy for accountants too.
Yeah. Hey, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Do you guys want me to read these out and have Sam, your smart brain, answer these?
Yeah, those are Sam. Those are good ones.
Well, we can try.
Let's go with this one. In migrating, because this is one that I think comes up often and could be really beneficial to a lot of people. In migrating to cloud-based accounting solutions, what measures do you take to ensure the security of financial data? And how do you assess the risk associated with third-party cloud service providers?
I'm pretty sure we have a vendor risk sort of handout that we can share. Mandy, maybe we can include that in the follow-up. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So some considerations. And so some of the things, if memory serves, that are going to be on there are going to be things like who has access to your systems? Are they onshore resources, offshore resources? Where are your data centers? Where are backups kept? And so a lot of that has to do with data sovereignty. We want to make sure that your data stays in the States. When we're transferring data, we want to make sure we're using secure file transfer means. So we want to make sure that it's a secure FTP or secure VPN that's been set up to port that data over. We want to make sure that we have enterprise grade security within the hosted environment. So going back to that 2002 closet setup where your brother's friend came and got you remote access 22 years ago, we want it to look totally different than that. And we're talking about things like threat hunting and redundant firewalls and intrusion detection. So there's a whole litany of things that hosting providers do to secure financial data. One of the others would be to check for a SOC 2 Type 2 certification. It's difficult to achieve, but the hosting providers that have it are attesting to and getting checked annually to make sure that all of the industry standards are being met for security.
Thank you, Sam. All right, let's talk about immediate response steps in the event of a breach.
What do we do, Dawn?
Oh, freak out and call Sam. I freak out and call you. I'm hoping that I have it, all nailed down, but I've got we have a WISP. We have a written information security plan. And I know we have it defined in there who's got to do what. So Tracy is our typical client communicator. So Tracy will be in charge of notifying clients. That's going to be her number one role. So she'll be ready for that. I'm calling my cybersecurity insurance, and Sam probably, or Mandy, probably Mandy. And I'm, I'm following my plan is what I'm doing. I'm following the plan that I have actually written.
Yep. And your insurance company is going to assign a forensic investigator that's going to work directly with our director of cybersecurity services and her team. We're going to pull logs, we're going to collaborate, and we're going to get down to the nitty gritty so that if more than 500 consumers, and that could be, there's some gray area around how this is defined, but that could be if you do payroll for 5 companies that have 100 employees, that could mean 500 consumers are impacted. So that could also mean that you need to report it to the FTC within 30 days. So quick action is uber critical.
Yeah.
And I think one of the ways that we can plan for the worst is kind of doing those tabletops. So saying, okay, we're going to take this afternoon and we're going to pretend that the worst possible thing has happened. We're going to pull our WISP out, or we're going to pull our incident response plan out. We're going to say, okay, Tracy, what are you going to do? How do you have a something that's kind of ready to go? How are you going to plan for your communication? How do we know how many people were impacted? Who contacts Visory? Who contacts insurance? And kind of walking through that so that if that worst case scenario were to happen, we don't all put on our panic hats. We kind of say, okay, we've walked through this once a year or twice a year. We kind of know who's responsible for what. Let's get to work.
Mhm. All right.
Prevention, I guess, is where it starts, though, because we don't want the worst to happen. Tabletop exercises are great, but how do we prevent it? Mandy talked about it at the top of the hour. There are a few things that can be done that I think are really the core critical things that every business should be doing. So threat hunting, real-time threat hunting with, that's AI driven, that's quarantining, remediating, bad files and links and processes that are kicked off because we've accidentally clicked on something. So that real-time threat hunting, MFA on everything, of course, training our teams. Those are going to be some more prevention things, but from a detection perspective, that's really all going to come down to the technology that you have deployed. So for Dawn, it's going to be things like threat hunting and active intrusion detection and things like that. For you, as a sole practitioner, maybe you've worked with a partner to get some sort of managed detection and response, like what Dawn has installed on your computer. Maybe you're managing your own antivirus, but it all comes down to detection and being able to identify that something bad is happening as quickly as possible.
Right. And that goes right along with the question that's in the chat here, or in the Q&A area. Does Visory work with sole practitioners? I think if anything, sole practitioners are our primaries, because, and I know I've been a sole practitioner before. I've been for years. I was on my own, and I'm already at that level. I'm doing everything. You're all by yourself. You're doing everything. You don't have time to be educating yourself and doing all the things when it comes to the security. So I think sole practitioners are absolutely fantastic identifiers for people who should be working with Visory, because you are stressed so thin. And I know as a sole practitioner, being able to almost like use Visory as an extension of your team. So you're not hiring your internal IT people, because who can afford that? We want to hire the people outside who can be an extension of our firm. And it's like hiring an employee, but not an employee. So who has that expertise?
Yeah, and I'd argue that sole practitioners are bigger targets, or more at risk, I guess would be the better way to put that, more at risk than 100-person firm, because bad actors know that you have the smallest budgets.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So Sam, what are some immediate actions to take?
Oh gosh. So if you're on your own, I guess, and you know that something has happened on your computer, immediately you need to disconnect it from the network. That's gonna be number one for you. Get it off your network so it can't get to anything else that's on your network. This is another place where that managed detection and response that I mentioned, or even an extended detection and response comes in, because those tools are able to correlate events and identify patterns of behavior that those processes are going through. Instead of waiting for the bad thing to finally happen, it's able to identify that the bad thing's about to happen, quarantine that process, and then remediate it. So that's why that threat hunting that Mandy talked about becomes so important from a containment and mitigation and remediation standpoint. It's also, if you're working with a managed service provider, they probably have a means to disconnect the computer from the network on your behalf. So if your computer's just sort of sitting there, kind of asleep, but something's gotten in and a process is kicked off, an alert comes into that SOC, that security operations center. They say, "Whoa, that shouldn't be happening. Let's disconnect that, and then let's get on the phone and talk to the client." So those are the kinds of things that I think really come into play, is getting it off of the network and being able to take action immediately. And the best way to do that is through a managed detection and response, or an extended detection and response. So MDR or XDR, those are going to be the two solutions that come to mind from a technology perspective to really contain and mitigate. Oh boy, Dawn.
Oh boy. Compliance. That's just freaking me out already. Legal reporting. You've got to report this. You have to report when a breach has happened. And so I know we have to contact certain organizations. Sam, you're going to have to take that, man, because I don't even want to, I try not to think about that stuff because I'm already dealing with the IRS on other matters. I don't want to deal with them on this, but I know I have to.
Yep. So you went through a lot of it. I do have it though. So you're going to, if you're a tax preparer, you're gonna have to notify your IRS stakeholder liaison. That's
Mhm.
going to be somebody that you have to contact. And this is why we build our written information security plans and our incident response plans. So we have all of this documented for our state, or the states that we work in. We're going to notify the FTC. We mentioned that, right? If you're over 500 consumers or individuals, data have been breached, we're going to notify the FTC within 30 days. We're going to notify our local law enforcement first, and they're going to actually advise us as to whether or not we need to reach out to the FBI or Secret Service. And then based on your state regulation, which this is something state by state, you sort of have to do your homework on, you might need to also contact the state attorney general and follow any requirements that they say that you have. So state by state could be a little bit different, and based on your state, it could also mean that you need to notify credit monitoring agencies and offer credit monitoring services to the people that had data that were breached. I feel like I'm getting those in the mail at least 2 to 3 times a year at this point, Dawn. I just got
Yes.
one that was bad enough that they gave me 2 years of identity theft monitoring. Usually it's a
Mhm.
year. So I don't know how bad it was, but I got 2 years out of them.
Yeah, I get those, and I kind of ignore them, to be
Meh,
honest.
why not?
I'm like, take what you need, people. Sometimes, not my client's information, but my money. You need my money, you take my money. Like that's, I'm always like, you want to do that deterring thing, like locking your car for someone not to steal it. And,
Right.
it's kind of like, that's the way we got to think a little bit about this whole concept of security and protection is. And we talked to one of the top IRS cybersecurity people with Eric Green
Mhm.
a while back. And he was saying, just thinking about the simple things you can do. Like if you think about a car, like, so if you're not doing MFA, right? The simplest thing you can do is MFA, right? It's free, it's simple. It's like your car, you leaving the car unlocked with the keys in the ignition. Like, at least take the keys out of the ignition, or I have a key fob. So put the key fob in your pocket, lock the car. You're at least deterring for when the bad guy comes around and just is pulling on the handles. They move on from your car because they're like, there's gonna be one open. I already know this because we have human people. And so it's the same thing with the computers. It's the same thing with the technology. We've got to take at least those basic steps to get rid of the majority of those easy kill shots, or whatever you want to call it, right? The people that are, I can make so much money off of this person. They don't even lock their car. I could steal their car. I'll wait till they buy the next one, and I'll go steal the next one. Like we just take it so for granted. And so, and I wanted to just say too, as we're going through this, that that Visory does offer the service of helping you with your WISP. And I would encourage you, based on what Sam just said, with regards to having the WISP in place and all this information for the people to call is critical.
There
Yeah.
was a question, I'll back up for a second. There was a question about specific tools and technologies used to monitor for breaches. I would say at the endpoint level, a couple to put on your radar would be CrowdStrike or Sentinel-1, or even Microsoft Defender, if you're a Microsoft shop and have some expertise in setting that up. So those would be three that are pretty best of breed.
Yep. Notifying the clients, that's my most biggest fear. I got to tell them,
Biggest fear.
well, isn't it? Now it's like,
Mhm.
you can't trust me with your information. And I know we get a lot of pushback from the clients. We want them to do things certain ways, but there's reasons we're telling them to do things certain ways. And so as we're thinking through the constant, maybe it's a phone call or it's an email, like, oh, I can't log into Smart Vault, or I can't get this done. You know what? It's very important to us that we take care of the clients and helping them get to that point. So we use Liscio for client communications. We're going to use more of that this year coming up with Tax Organizer. So we're going to have clients that struggle with the technology we're choosing, but we're choosing the technology for a reason. And so I think of, okay, if this thing goes down where I got to notify them, that's worse than dealing with them trying to learn a new way to get me their stuff. So, I mean, we've got to be as proactive as possible so we don't get to step 4, or we don't get to any of these steps ever. That's up to us. We're in control of that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, having a template for those notifications, having those up front. I mean, just being ready. Like Liscio is a great tool for that. There, you can set up a template for, and I mean, this is like, it's kind of like writing your own eulogy. I feel like it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to set this email up that when I do have a cyber attack, it's so morbid that you're going to prepare this template that it's like, I'm preparing for the worst. And that's
Yeah.
hard to do. And it's mentally hard to do that, Mandy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And another great tool, because if you're like me, sometimes you want to write a really awesome email, but you got white page syndrome. Go to ChatGPT, type in what you want that template to say, and it's going to give you a really nice outline, and then just kind of, mark it up to make it meet your needs, but have it ready to go. So in the event when you're in total panic mode, that's already prepared for you. One thing that you can mark off the list.
Exactly. And I love, and the reason I'm saying this about Liscio is you can actually click all the clients that are in the tool and send it to everybody from that same tool. People would get a text notification to their phones immediately. Instead of, I'm just throwing it out there, but instead of one email at a time that you're sending out or whatever your procedure is going to be, I want a tool where I can just click a button, apply it to this template, and send it all out so everybody gets it instantly to their phone, even though I don't want to notify them.
And you don't want them to respond back to you.
Exactly.
And since Mandy brought up AI, I guess a good time. There's another Q&A in there.
Yeah.
And Dawn, this one you might have some comments on. So when you're evaluating incorporating emerging technologies like AI and machine learning into your accounting processes, what criteria do you use to assess their potential benefits and risks?
I think one of the key parts of that, as this is growing more and more, I looked at an AP app on Monday. Today's Wednesday, right? I looked at an AP app on Monday, and it was an accounts payable app that could literally read everything on the invoice. I'm so impressed by it. I'm like, oh my goodness, like imagine. And they, the guy Ted was showing me like how it kind of works. And I feel like as AI comes in, we have to pay more attention. We can't make assumptions that, oh, it's AI, it'll take care of it. We have to pay more attention to that, at least in the beginning, until we know what the machine is learning and what it is putting out for information. Because it's not necessarily doing research for you and inserting certain maybe IRS tax codes or things like that. Not necessarily, but maybe it does. But I feel like when I'm evaluating the AI, I am paying attention to it, especially in the beginning phase of my understanding of how the tool will work within that tool, right? How AI is going to work within a practice management tool, for instance. AI is great for helping set up processes. Those are, I would call, non-threatening. So AI that is determining processes probably isn't going to ruin my business, as opposed to AI that's reading financials and giving financial advice. That's a little bit more threatening to my, I would say, to my trusted advisor role. And so I think as I go through, that's how I think about it. I'm like, okay, I need to pay attention here. It's not like I go into Lacert and I enter W-2s, which I don't do anymore because of Gruntworks. But if I did and went in and entered some W-2s, I'm pretty confident that I've put them in properly and that they're going to go in the way they should. Now, implementing a tool like Gruntworks, which utilizes AI to pull mostly OCR, but to pull information off of a W-2, to populate a file that will be pushed into Lacert so I don't have to enter the W-2. I'm still verifying the information. I'm still taking the W-2s and adding the gross wages together to make sure that's the line on line one. There's still due diligence that we have to do when it comes to the AI. I think that's the ultimate message.
Yeah, I'd agree. And so beyond, checking for accuracy and checking for bias and things like that, I would also just add determining who owns the data and asking whether or not they're using your data to teach their model in a way that would make your data potentially be at risk. And, I know all the guys that you've been talking about, Dawn, they're great. But, if we're looking at third parties, we should always be asking those due diligence questions and making sure that they're not using your information to train their model.
Right. What's the deal?
Yeah.
And that's more due diligence than we're used to, I think. And that's, I think my point is,
Mm-hmm.
you were just like, I'm just entering stuff into QuickBooks, man. I'm just trying to reconcile accounts and get a tax return done. But when it starts to be something where that information you don't own any longer, that's where we definitely will run into problems. So we've got to pay attention.
Yep, you're all over it. And Don, I know you're great with transparency and talking with clients. You're using platforms for that. Anything you want to talk about with maintaining communication? This would be post breach, I think, right? This is incident response at this point.
Yeah, and I think it says like keeping them up to date, like we were saying, an instant notification. You've taken the measures to mitigate the problem that's happened, the breach that's happened.
Yeah.
You've done that already. But now to be like, hey, listen, and it may even be to the point where you're required to notify them pretty darn quickly. You get them notified, but then you know what it is? It's hours and hours on the phone. You want to be connecting with those clients. You want to reassure them that, we've mitigated the problem, we've reported it, all the things.
Insurance is involved. We're
Insurance.
investigating. Yeah.
So your plan may need to include, now for sole props, it's all you, but you may find that for myself, like I've got myself and two others, it's for us, it's all three of us will be doing that. Nicole will be calling the bookkeeping clients. Here's who she's in charge of. Tracy, here's who you're in charge of, and here's who I'm in charge of. And I'm in charge of the ones who pay us the most. So that's going to be kind of like our strategy around how we get that out there. And because you're gonna have to rebuild that trust. And that's why the prevention is so important. We don't want to get here.
Cyber insurance. So interestingly enough, I have another webinar tomorrow, Dawn. We're meeting with an insurance broker and somebody that works with clients to deal with insurance after incidents. And we're going to be talking about this topic exactly. And so it is super important to look at your policy and make sure that you understand what they're requiring of you to be covered. I'll give you a very brief example, and then I'll let you talk real world, Dawn. We had an insurance policy for our event venue. Hurricanes are not covered, by the way.
For your wedding.
Yeah.
For your wedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So really understanding what's covered, what's not covered, and what those scenarios are that might, leave you vulnerable, I think, from my perspective, is really important.
We need a link to that, by the way, out there somewhere, because I want to go to that because I'm still my tax partner laughed at me. I said, send me a copy of our cyber insurance policy, and I started reading through it. And I said, and our setup's a little bit weird, but anyway, I won't get into that. But anyway, I was like, and he's like, you got past page 1? I'm like, yeah, I got past page 1, bro. I am like paranoid psycho. I got to make sure I'm covered, man. But I know we're getting close to time, so. Yep. Got to file that claim.
File the
Got to call the
claim.
insurance. Got to file it.
Yeah, if it happens, you're probably going to be contacting your insurance company first, local law enforcement second. Your IT provider is going to be in there. If you've got a managed service provider, they might be your first call. But those are going to be kind of the phone calls that are happening simultaneously. We'll go with that. You have a team big enough. You're contacting local law enforcement, your MSP, and your insurance company. And then the other phone calls can come after. But that's where you're going first.
Yep, absolutely.
And then, yeah, post-mortem. So you've recovered insurance, forensics. We figured it out. We've got the bad guys. You didn't have to pay the ransomware. Hooray. Where do we go from here, and how do we keep anything like this from happening again? And how do we stay up to date on the changing threat landscape and the evolving technologies that are available to help you mitigate against those evolving risks? So I think a post-mortem is what you do with your managed service provider or your local IT guy, or internally you do some soul searching and decide whether or not you're ready to take something on yourself again, or if you need an expert to partner with you.
I hate learning when I fall on my face, but I seem to do that regularly. This is one I'm really trying to avoid. So, you know, I think I learn best when I get my butt kicked, but I don't want to do it this one. So this one I've been very much paying attention to and doing what Sam tells me. That's essentially what I do. But yeah, 3 things you can do today. Go ahead, Sam. MDR. When somebody asks a great question about, and this is directly related to MDR, I'm using my red pencil, how network detection and response tools such as 40 NDR, I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right, help in identifying and mitigating threats in real time within a financial network. Can they automatically handle certain incidents without human intervention? So if you can answer that question right with this slide right here.
So network detection and response, a little different than the managed detection and response we've been talking about for endpoints. There are some things that can be handled automatically from a network perspective. If you have a network, I would recommend having an IT professional, a managed security service that's managing your network and managing those alerts, and probably has attached not only like a Fortinet type solution, but probably a SIM, so that there's correlation of activity on endpoints, as well as network traffic, and things can be a lot more proactive in that way. And yes, there are some AI-driven tools and processes that can do some auto remediation, but you really want professionals looking at the alerts and the correlated data.
Nice.
Yeah. So these are 3 things that I picked out for us that you can do today. This is going to cost you right around $50 a month per user. So it's not that expensive, but this is going to protect your business so much. Our MDR solution comes with that cybersecurity awareness training. So that's the most important thing, teaching your team how to look for suspicious emails and what to do if they come across one. It has that end device protection on the computer so that we're 24/7 watching your devices, looking for any suspicious behavior. And if there is anything, it alerts our security team, and our security team can dig deeper into it, but it's automatically going to start that remediation process for you on its own. Email filtering. This is a great new tool that we have that we put on top of every person's email address. And through artificial intelligence, again, it has learned what emails have bad links in it, and it automatically quarantines those emails out, and they never hit your staff's email accounts. So there's no chance on them even clicking it. And if at the end of the day, you do get a notification saying, here's all the emails that we quarantined, I think I'm up to like 45 a day emails that are being quarantined.
Wow.
And if there is something that's legit that you think that you do need, you can click to release it. Then our security team is going to review it one more time before it releases it to your Outlook, just to ensure that it is not something that's malicious. And then backups, having backups on your local C drive, on your O365, your Google G Suite, your QuickBooks Online, make sure that you have backups in place. QuickBooks Online does not back up your data on its own. I know you think because it's in the cloud, it's secure, but they're backing up the platform. They're not backing up your individual data. So making sure that you have backups in place. If you have questions about any of our services, please reach out to me. I'm going to email you all tomorrow with the deck and with the deck and a link to the webinar. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and we really appreciate you coming today, Dawn, and all of you taking your time out of your day to spend it with us. And we wish you guys a great rest of the week.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.